So what are you working on today?
Well, I've got a rough board here. You can see it's rough cut. I'm just trying to smooth it out. And then I'm planning on making, replace some handles. So I plan on making handles like, I got some of these plain ordinaires that need new handles. So that's what I'm working on. Trying to smooth it out and then work on it and get it down a little bit. This is called we call it a shaving horse, but French called it a chevalaisie. And this is a plain ordinaire, and it's basically just this is actually used to make shingles. And you see this, if I go down too deep, I get rough spots like that. So I've been trying to go real light. But you get in here, then I start taking off stuff. And if you round off the edges like that, then you can get not right there. So.
Again.
Okay, my name's Gary Shell with the San Genevieve Militia, or Milice de San Genevieve.
Yeah, he's definitely getting big.
This ended up being a net bag for like putting apples in, or if you got somebody that's a sports fan, putting their balls into it. But down here along the river, they probably would have used them for putting vegetables in, like cabbages or melons or something like that, so they can ship them off on the flat bottom boats. Put apples in it, potatoes, help keep them dry. But, I make all kinds of sizes of nets. There's one net hanging over there. Stretch it out, it'd be 5 foot deep, and 17 feet long. It's that the white one hanging in the back. But, the black one's a gill net. But, this one here, that's a seine. That would be 17 feet long if it was stretched out all the way. And 5 foot deep. But, a lot of knots.
Yeah.
A lot of knots. I think there was about 25, 26 hours worth of work in that one net. And this is actually one made out of jute twine. That's cotton twine there that's been dipped in tar to help preserve it. But what I'm making right now is these net bags. Had one lady use them for smoking hams in. You drop the ham in there and put it in the smoker. But you could also use them for putting potatoes in there, keep them from rotting so quickly. Put apples in.
Going to the garden,
Going
water
to the
bottles, yoga mats.
Yep. I had one lady, she wanted one made for her yoga mat so she could throw it over her back and it could air out as she was on the way home. So those little net bags come in handy for all kinds of stuff. We made some where they were big enough for like a wine bottle. And that way if you're out canoeing, you can hang it over the side of your canoe and cool your wine down. And they're just handy for all kinds of stuff. Make barrel nets out for catching fish in.
Hammocks?
Hammocks.
We were asked to make a hammock for something too.
Yep. But, they come in handy for all kinds of stuff.
Thank you. Get this.
My name is Mark Diamond. I'm with the St. Genevieve Militia, and I'm here making nets today as a demonstration for whoever wants to come by and see it. And
A lot more about the different coins we have, but these are several of the coins that we have. We have some British coins, some Guinea coins, or from Guinea and James coins. These were all coins that would be found at this time frame. But when you watch a pirate movie or think of pieces of 8, this is what a piece of 8 would be. It would be a big coin that would be basically Spanish from 1755 to 1783 generally, and it would be soft, so when you spent it, they would cut off whatever section you spent. It could be broken into 8 sections, and then you just put what they didn't take off back in your pocket. You have 1 coin instead of 8. And if the pockets weren't that good, you know, a lot of different variables went into keeping just 1 coin instead of 8 little ones. So that's one of the most interesting ones that I think we have here.
Ellie Mae.
Well, these are some of the trade goods that he would take out to bring furs back. The Indians at this time period, it was interesting. They liked their men to look really good, sort of like the male cardinals. So when he would go out, he would take things for the women. He would take them thimbles. When they're sewing the fur or the skins to make their clothing, it's a lot nicer if you're pushing this through the fur to have this catch it instead of poking your finger. So thimbles were small things he could take. Beads so they can make beadwork, and they like their bells. They like their guys to jingle. They would even use teeth and different bone parts for necklaces. Clay beads from a different area from what they were in. They would also like the pieces of glass so that they didn't have to have a flint and steel. They could just use this to start a fire. Bright, shiny, anything bright and shiny they liked. And when he would go into a tribe, if it was the first time going into the tribe, one of the things he would do would take one of these in, and this would go to the chief. It's shiny, so the chief can see his reflection in it, and he can also see any enemies coming up from behind him. So this would be what the chief would get to be as a good faith measure. I'm here, I want to do business with you, I'm giving you this. It's also a peace pipe, because you can smoke it. You can get different ones. We've got some brass ones. There's a brass one in here that's tarnished. This is sometimes called a fertility tomahawk because of the symbol, how it's made. But each area had their own type of tomahawk that they use. There's British boarding axes. This is a British boarding axe. These are just various ones. And this is a French
I am going
tomahawk.
to sit down and do this with you. I followed it. I even have directions for it. And it's just one of those things, finding the time
This is
and
the French kind. It doesn't have the back like these do.
get to it. Yeah.
And when we throw tomahawks, this is the one I use because it's balanced best for me.
Yep.
But this is a French hawk, so this is my favorite one on the shelf. But they even had them for kids to start, so they could start helping out when they were young. And this one is one that's not been completed; it's still being forged. So there was a lot of different tomahawks, a lot of different things going on at this time frame when he would come back from trading with the furs. So, my name is Rita Diamond, and I am a member of the St. Genevieve Police.
Well, you could also do it kind of like that. Then you shoot square down.
Corned beef that I corned myself.
Oh, that looks good.
These are all garters. This is what I refer to as the most famous pair of garters in the world. These were prop garters for an artist by the name of Benjamin West. He painted a picture called The Death of Wolf. And when he painted this picture, there was a Native American wearing this set of garters. Now these were prop garters, so he would put them on a Native American to paint them. But because they show up in that painting, they're very famous. But if you look, they copy each other until they get down here, and then they're different. The garters are different, so they're not mirror images of each other. The Native Americans believed that anytime they made a set of garters or a horn strap, anything out of beadwork, they always tried to make a mistake in it, because they said nobody is perfect except the Almighty. And so to show that nothing was perfect, they would make a mistake in their garters. This is a set of garters that are copies of a set, very famous set. If you're my age, there was a rock group called Three Dog Night, but this is a very famous set, and they're referred to as the Two Dog Garters. And that's what we have here is two dogs on the garter. This is a set of garters that are a copy of the garters that were worn by the Seminole Indian chief Osceola. And so I reproduced Osceola's garters. Now the garters are used, as you can see on my leg here, they're used to hold your socks up. We haven't invented elasticity yet. And so to hold your socks up, you would wear garters. This is a set of garters that's not a copy of anything, except this design was used to seal a treaty between the Native Americans and William Penn, the founder of Pennsylvania. And there's two schools of thought in this particular garters. I hope you can see that good with your camera. There's two schools of thought in these garters. One school of thought tells us that this is a Native American and this is a European with their full bloused coats. The other school of thought, and the one that I believe, this is that's the one I believe, that we have a Native American and a European. But the other school of thought is this is a man and this is a woman. You can find experts on this, and they can argue both ways. They argue about it. We don't know. There are so many things in this that we don't know. But when I find good quality stuff in museums, I have a tendency to reproduce it. And almost without exception here, these are reproduced from existing artifacts to show people, young people like yourself, to show them that 18th century garters can be made with a 20th century design. I'm going to ask you, do you recognize this design?
I do not.
This design is my generation. This is a Vietnam service medal. And so I do that to show that 20th century stuff can be made to look like 18th century stuff. These should be worn by a person my age. And I am not a Vietnam veteran, but this was a service medal that was awarded to anybody that served in Vietnam. And I've made them for Desert Storm, and the younger people that were in Desert Storm, they fly off the shelf. I give them away to veterans that were in Desert Storm or one of the other services. A lot of these events are juried events, and they want to make sure that what you've got out here is right, and everything I got out here is right. I'm kind of a stickler for that. But then I go and show them this set of garters and say, these are wrong, and I'll put them away, but it'll be after the fight. Because the guys and girls that came back from Vietnam were treated very, very poorly. And I've never had anybody say, Clarence, put them away. They've always allowed me to leave my garters out there. I drank my coffee this morning out of a copper cup. These would not have been real common. They would have probably been made out of tin, but tin rust, and I don't like coffee that tastes like rust. And so I use a copper boiler, also good for fixing yourself a little bit of food or something. But everything here, again, is based on originals that I found. I'm lucky to have a daughter that's a museum professional, and she gets fantastic pictures of things that have not been on display at various museums for many years. I've got a tricorn hat box over here for carrying your tricorn hats around, and I don't see one person in this encampment that's wearing a tricorn box. I have a reproduction Buccaneer musket down here, which I'm going to pick up just to show you how long this gun is. This is the original musket is in a museum in Maine. It came over on a ship about 1710. At various times through history, the King of France demanded that French merchants coming to the New World would have anywhere between 6 and 14 of these muskets. They were required to bring to this country to sell, to make sure that the French inhabitants, those people in St. Genevieve here, could buy these muskets and have a musket to use. This model musket came from Maine. I believe as soon as these muskets came off of the ship, they were sold to the first person that had a lot of cash in their hand. So a lot of them would have ended up in English hands or Spanish hands anyway. But it is a French musket. It's some people call them Buccaneers because of the weird shape of the stock on them here. It's a 56.25-inch barrel. It's 69 caliber gun. And I'm 6 feet tall, and this musket is just about the same height as I am. So it's a very impractical gun, but what we knew about ballistics at the time, we thought that longer barrels would shoot more accurately than short barrels. It's picking up all those motorcycles, ain't it?
Yep.
My cameraman here is shaking his head, yes, it's picking up the motorcycles. I have this. Show you. If you ever get to go tour the USS Constitution or Old Ironsides in Boston Harbor, take the opportunity to go see it. It's a national treasure. And above each cannon on the cannon deck in the USS Constitution hangs one of these. This is an artillery pass box, and it was used by a young man who would be aboard this ship. And when they got into a battle and they needed to fire their cannons, their cartridges would be stored in the way below ship. And that young man would run down, get a cartridge, put it in this box, and run back to the gun captain so they could fire that cannon. They kept them in these because they're basically fireproof. He's not going to catch a spark and blow up on the ship. They could fire that cannon only as fast as that young boy could run and get a cartridge and bring a cartridge back to the gun captain on the cannons. I have a Native American inspired powder horn down here. That's an experiment in process. Some of the Native American horns were decorated with polka dots. I am trying to figure out how they put the polka dots on. I haven't figured out how that's done yet. So I'm experimenting, trying to find a way to do that. This is an interesting piece here. And a man looked at it earlier, he recognized this. This is the top of a lightning rod, is what it is. But I made this to represent what's called a gunner's dagger. And the gunner's dagger would be used if your gun was about to be overrun and you needed to spike your cannon. You would stick this in the touch hole of the cannon, give it a pop on top, and break it off, rendering that gun inoperable, preventing your enemy from swiveling that gun around and killing you with your own cannon. And so I make artillery daggers for my friends that do artillery work. I make a lot of artillery stuff, simply because nobody else does it. But, my name is Clarence Warfield. I live down at Perryville. That's what I do. I'm a long-time reenactor. I'm wearing, my wife just showed up. I'm wearing a game bag. A bag where in this part of the bag would kept your whatever you need to fire your musket and shoot it. And then when you get game, you don't want to put it in here because it doesn't get no air and it spoils very quickly. So you would store your doves or rabbits or whatnot in this game bag that gets a lot of air through it, so your meat doesn't spoil before you get a chance to cook it. Very much a German thing, and as many Germans as were around St. Genevieve here. Were these here? I don't know. I'm trying to reproduce a bag such as this that was owned by Daniel Boone. If I can get a good picture of the Boone bag, it moves the time period that these bags were used. For me, it moves it back 50 years, which I'm really excited about. That said, my lovely wife that did the macrame on this has said, never again. There's a lot of hours in making this bag. A lot of hours, a lot of square knots.
Put your lead in the ladle, and then you let it melt. And after it's melted, you pour it into this little mold right here. And it comes out like that. There's a bit of slag on the outside, a little bit of casting slag. You empty it out. Then you trim the casting off, and you have your finished ball. And I done about, I don't know, probably 30 or so this morning. My first attempt at ever doing that, so I think it came up pretty well.
Look pretty good.
I'm Terry Shoemaker. I'm with the St. Genevieve Militia.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Deb Cameron, and I belong to both the St. Genevieve Milice and the Cahokia Milice. I'm a living historian, and today we have an encampment here in St. Genevieve. I am the spinner, and today I'm spinning wool. It is from a cross, a border Leicester cross, and it is a natural gray. And it's really not difficult. The wheel puts in the twist and pulls it in and winds it on, and it is my job to keep the wheel going, but also to pull back and allow that twist to go into the fibers. The downside is it takes a tremendous amount of time to make enough yarn to actually make enough for an item or a garment. I have with me today a Voyager hat, and this is the hat that the Voyagers would have worn coming up from Louisiana. I also have a Coeur de Bois hat. This is the hat the woodsmen or Coeur de Bois would have worn coming down from Canada. And they actually met many times here at St. Genevieve and traded their goods and actually used this area as a point of commerce for them. I make a lot of shawls and socks and hats and mitts and mittens And we have a supposedly very cold winter coming up, so I'm in big production right now, trying to catch up with all my orders and get things done. So come to St. Genevieve and see our living history. Thank you.
My name is Justine Dorn. I live on the Illinois side of the river in O'Fallon, Illinois. I have a YouTube channel called Early American. It focuses on the 1820s. I know I'm in 18th century dress right now, but normally I do 1820s. And I film all my videos at the 1820 Benjamin Stevenson House in Edwardsville, Illinois. It's mainly a cooking channel, but I also have some drama videos on there as well. All set in the 1820s. The house was built in 1820, so that's the period that I focus on. And mainly cooking videos, like cooking the hearth over there. I find old recipes from period books and I recreate them for better or for worse. Sometimes they don't turn out very good. Sometimes they turn out great, but I just want to try and experiment with it, and honestly I would say it's 50-50 that they don't turn out good and they turn out great. I'll try them no matter what. I make desserts, I make savory dishes, bread, pies. I pretty much made everything. I tried making applesauce last week. So yeah, it's a lot of different tastes than you're probably used to in modern food. Everything, even from just a regular steak back then, would have had nutmeg and clove on it, which is a bit strange for modern tastes. But I feel like a good way to get in touch with your ancestors is to experience something that they did, and you can do that through food. That's all I got.
Talk about your volunteer.
Hi, I'm Ronald Rayfield, one of the members of the St. Gen Milice here, militia in English. We're looking for new volunteers, young, old, and in between, male or female, doesn't matter. Did you also know that 60 men from St. Genevieve fought in the Revolutionary War in 1780 at the Battle of Fort San Carlos, which is right where the arch is today in St. Louis. So come be a part of that, it'd be really fun.